everyone, I'm Captain Logan. It's not Spawn year. It's day 70 of my comic review video day calendar, and I have been a little under the weather this weekend, so I wasn't able to get one of these out yesterday, but never fear, within the next couple days, I'll have two out in one day, and it'll be a bonus for you that day if you just pretend like today really was yesterday. Does that make sense? It's ostensibly day 70. Let's just go with it. So in the meantime, here is Batman Confidential number 26. This comes out in 2009, and this is a thing I have always wanted to see done with a 60s Batman villain. Let's take an original campy 60s Batman villain and make it more serious, make him more menacing. Get him to fit within the rogues gallery of serious Batman villains, if not top tier, at least a good solid B-list kind of Arkham inmate sort of character. Why haven't we done this with King Tut? Why haven't we done this with Bookworm and characters like that? Maybe a little bit of a harder sell for somebody like Louis the Lilac, or for I don't know, Egghead. It might be difficult to make him scary and menacing, but I'd love to see somebody try to live up to the challenge. This is probably the character that would have been at the top of my list to get this treatment, and it turns out that it already happened, and I completely missed the boat on it. Like, I have had 5 kids since this happened, and I didn't even realize it. I've said for years, particularly on the Captain Logan show, we've had this conversation a lot. Where are my serious 60s Batman villains? There's no reason that some of the original characters in that show couldn't be reinvented like this, and it already happened in Batman Confidential, which is a fun place to do it, because the idea with this book is it's kind of an anthology thing written and drawn by various teams of writers and artists, and the idea is retroactively, here are all these stories that we're just getting around to telling that happened in Batman's history. We're using the word confidential almost like they're Batman has like swept them under the rug, or it's a big secret, we're not telling anybody about it. More often they're just not super consequential stories, except for things like the Joker origin story that's told in this book, which I've reviewed before. More of them are this kind of thing, where it's like, we can kind of tell these stories at any time, but it's kind of fun to fit them into various parts of Batman's history and say, yeah, we just never got around to showing you this. So sometimes they're more recent, sometimes they're farther back in the past, and it was really kind of a fun catch-all place for anthology stories. Anybody that wanted to write a story that had a cool idea that was working at DC could come in and use this book, and I always thought that was a neat idea. But anyway, this is written by a husband and wife duo, Nunzio De Philippis with his wife Christina Weir, and they did some TV work. They wrote for an HBO series called Arliss, which I have heard of but never seen. It's a comedy series starring and created by Robert Wool, of all people. Yeah, the guy who played Knox in Batman 89. See, it all goes back to Batman. There's all these Batman connections everywhere. And I've always been kind of curious to see that, just kind of a cable comedy drama, but I don't know anything about it beyond that. And they have done quite a bit of comics work, including some stuff for New Mutants, where they created a whole lot of characters that I have not seen in a lot of things, but characters like Hellion and Wallflower, etc. And then this is drawn by a veteran comics writer who's in his mid-70s now, a Spanish artist named Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and he is best known for his comic style guides, which he would draw for various extra media like Batman Returns and things like that, kind of comics art style guides that would help designers get a good base point for how to design stuff, what those things should look like, extra media and also merchandise and things like that. But he also worked on books in the particularly in the 80s, like New Teen Titans and things like that. So kind of fun seeing an older veteran guy reinventing King Tut visually, because he would have been in his 20s when that TV show was on. So I would imagine he probably had a kick out of this. Everybody watched that show back then. So once again, this is kind of a silly exercise, not Spawn Year. I'm reviewing a single issue that is the start of a 3-issue arc. Usually I would sit down and read all of these and then tell you what I think. It's only 3 issues, tell you what I think about the whole story and be able to give you a synopsis start to finish. But that's not what we're doing. We're just looking at individual issues this year, and I will definitely finish this myself, even if I don't end up talking about it. I don't know how much interest there will be in... I gotta quit doing that. Like, I'm showing you the cover, and then I'm picking up the cover. But I don't know how much interest there's gonna be in seeing me talk about the rest of this. But certainly, if this sounds interesting to you, go seek this out and take a look at it. I will, of course, just tell you kind of how this starts, and then eventually I'll sit down and finish reading it myself. So we've got a kind of different setup for King Tut here. With the way this opens, I really expected it to be a kind of creepier twist on what the 60s series did with King Tut, of course, which is he is a college professor who gets hit on the head and goes back and forth between his personality and a King Tut personality, where he'll think that he is the historical godlike King Tut, but if you smack him on the head with something like a rock or whatever, he'll go back to his old self. And I thought this guy at the beginning, and I think maybe this is a red herring, I think maybe we're supposed to think this, we have a museum curator at the beginning here who is working on Egyptian artifacts, and a King Tut character shows up and murders him. And I thought, for a while, actually, first read on this, I wasn't sure if we were seeing a real person or if this was all in this guy's head. And then we find out that he's died, and I'm like, oh, okay, so we have an actual physical, literal King Tut that is apart from this guy, and it's not in his head. But I thought that's where we were going with this. The risk you run in trying to reinvent King Tut in a serious way is making him too much like Maxie Zeus, because Maxie Zeus essentially is the serious King Tut. He is based in Greek mythology, but it's the same sort of idea, where it's a historian or a college professor who has had a break with reality, or I think in that case it's a wealthy businessman, but who's like obsessed with this period of history, maybe has an inferiority complex, and so his psyche is fractured, and he is using this as, like, subconsciously as a coping mechanism, as a defense mechanism for the ways in which he feels, inferior and ineffectual in his life. And that's not what we're doing here, although we don't know who exactly is behind the mask yet, and like how this King Tut is here and what exactly he's doing. And it is potentially connected to the Riddler, which is an angle that I think is a lot of fun, because... So let me backtrack for a second and say, so the MO for this King Tut is he shows up, he speaks a riddle while he's killing someone, and luckily there's always surveillance or somebody standing there to memorize the entire riddle and then get it back to Batman and or Gordon, which is hilarious, because if somebody didn't get every word of it, you wouldn't know the riddle and you wouldn't be able to break that down. He doesn't leave any kind of calling card. He doesn't have it written down anywhere. He's not like the Riddler where he'll give you like a box that you open up and it's got the riddle written down in it. Toward the end, there's someone who gets murdered, and his wife, even though she is seeing this horrible traumatic thing happen, she still has her wits enough about her to completely memorize the riddle. I gotta cried foul on that a little bit. I was like, I think she would be in shock, and she might not remember all of the riddle. So yeah, this King Tut guy, he is not the sharpest tool in the shed. It doesn't seem like, because there's no reason that people should necessarily be following his riddles because of that. But I guess he just gets lucky. Everybody remembers them. So anyway, the reason I like the Riddler angle is because this is a thing that 60s Batman would do all the time, where, because we had the fun formula with that show where there's a riddle that only has one possible answer, that's super convoluted and it could mean a million different things, but Batman's always right about the, to him, really obvious explanation, and it's always some kind of really cheesy pun that leads him to the right warehouse or building or whatever it is. They're essentially all the Riddler with just a different kind of getup, a different kind of theme. And this is kind of playing with that idea a little bit, where as soon as King Tut shows up and he's doing the same kind of thing, Batman goes, oh, this is a lot like the Riddler. So I'm going to go to Arkham and see if the Riddler is involved. And the Riddler assumes that Batman is there because he wants help deducing the riddles. And so Batman reads out the riddles, and they're all pretty basic, and some of them I feel like maybe I'm not good at riddles at all. Maybe I could have figured out. There's one about sunlight, there's one about darkness, and this guy is, so far the pattern, if there is one at all, is sometimes he murders at night and sometimes he murders in the morning. And Batman says he has some kind of time thing. And like, that's even maybe a little bit of a leap, except for the fact that the riddles are about night and day. But just saying, you know, he's murdering at night and during the and in the morning, that could just be when he's available, or that could be when he knows his victims are at their most vulnerable. I think it's a little bit of a leap that Batman says that, but whatever. He's got some kind of a time thing going on. And Enigma goes, you know, Batman, these riddles are really not that difficult. Like, you're kind of losing your mojo here a little bit. And Batman says, and Enigma's like, so why do you need my help? And he's like, I don't need your help. I'm assuming you're behind it. They're riddles. Like, this is your whole thing. And Enigma goes, no, it's not me. I'm not involved in this at all. Gordon thinks that he is like somehow sneaking out of Arkham. And I guess he's smart enough that maybe he could be doing that. Maybe somehow he's got inside help, or he's got some kind of holographic technology, like Lex Luthor in Superman 2 or something. But he claims that he's not involved at all, but he wants to help solve this riddle because it's interesting to him, and he's bored and he's got nothing better to do. But Batman, well, and actually the real reason is because he thinks he can use it as leverage to basically get out of jail free. And Batman says not a chance, and he leaves, and he and Alfred are working on trying to uncover this mystery. There's kind of a couple of clues or red herrings thrown in here as to who could be involved. Riddler might have something to do with it, and there's also this scheme that's been going on in the museum by this wealthy businessman that's been donating to the museum, I guess as a way to get close to it so that he can embezzle money away from the museum. It's a little bit of a of an odd kind of convoluted idea, and I'm pretty sure he is the second guy that gets murdered. I couldn't tell for sure if it was the same guy, but I think it is. So at first, he and this woman at the museum are conspiring to get to like funnel money away from the museum, and she's accusing him of being King Tut, of murdering the curator, and he says, "Hey, the scheme was your idea, this whole thieving idea, and how dare you point your finger at me?" And then he drives away, and I'm pretty sure he's the next guy. Is that still supposed to be him? Yeah, because he's wearing the same outfit. So he goes home, and then King Tut shows up and murders him, which suggests, of course, that he wasn't behind that. So maybe the woman is supposed to be the red herring, and she's pretending like it wasn't him, or trying to figure out what information he has. But I don't think it will turn out that she's involved either, and I think she'll also likely get murdered. And when you get to the end, the Riddler has escaped Arkham, which suggests that he might be involved, or maybe not. Maybe he's just so intrigued with this. I think that's where it will probably end up going, but I guess I'll find out. Maybe the idea is he's so intrigued that he has reason to escape now, and he wants to go figure it out and prove that he can solve the mystery of King Tut before Batman can. So Batman has narrowed down the potential victims to like 12, and he thinks for some reason, like, I think Batman's making a bunch of leaps, or at least I'm not totally understanding why he's making some of the deductions that he does. Batman says, so I've got these 12 people it could be, and I want Gordon to send police cars to all of their residences, and he does that, but Batman says it's probably going to be the eldest of them that King Tut is after. Why the eldest over any of the others? Like, it hasn't been only elderly people he's murdering. I'm not sure how he gets to that. But he's right, because he's the one that goes to... It's not like Dark Knight where he picks the wrong house or the wrong location between Harvey Dent and Rachel Dawes. Like, he goes to the right place, and he has this fight with King Tut, who I thought was going to continue only speaking in riddles. Oh, and by the way, I should also mention that Riddler says it's kind of a sloppy theme. It's almost a mixed metaphor that it's a pharaoh and not a sphinx that's giving the riddles. But apparently the next issue has the word sphinx in the title, so I guess that's going to be in there also. But yeah, I thought King Tut was going to just keep speaking in riddles, and then suddenly he starts going on about how, like, I don't understand what his motivation is, like why he's killing the people he's killing, because he goes on about how Batman, even though he is ostensibly trying to save the city, he is enveloped in darkness just like the rest of the city is. He's dressed up as a bat, and he's going out every night punching criminals. Like, he's just as dark and brooding and part of the whole Gotham oeuvre as everybody else is like all of the Arkham inmates and the villains that he fights. And he says, you're part of the problem, and I've got to take you down just like the rest of the city so that we can replace you with a god of light of some kind. So he seems to think that what he's doing is for the betterment of Gotham. That he can, like, it's another villain that thinks he is, with Batman, that thinks he's the good guy, and that Batman is indeed the villain, or just as bad as the villains that he fights. And then again, at the end, Riddler has disappeared, and that's the comic. It doesn't get quite as much done as I wish it would, and I was a little bit let down by the end that we didn't have a little bit more information about King Tut, but I am intrigued enough, certainly, to keep reading, and I like the art in this quite a bit. I really like how expressive Batman is, and the action is certainly cinematic enough. I really like this shot of Batman with his line swinging across the city at the top of that page. It's not brilliant or anything, but it's quite solid, and it's a little bit more modern than I might expect from this particular artist with the background that he has. Like, I might have expected something a little bit more 70s throwback, and it's really not. It looks very early 2000s to me. And I think this is something of an underrated artist. Like I said, not necessarily my favorite thing for Batman, but I think it fits really well with a lot of the other artists that I like. Like it's not that too far removed from guys like Breyfogle, who's my favorite Batman artist. Yeah, I mean it's pretty decent. But anyway. That's going to be it for me today. I just wanted to bring up the fact that King Tut did indeed get a serious Batman story, and I got to look into this and see if anybody else did from that series. I know that there are cameos here and there. There was the sequel to Long Halloween has a Chief O'Hara cameo, and I think he gets killed off like right after we meet him at the beginning of that book. But I'm not sure if it ever happens again. Like, I don't know if Aunt Harriet ever shows up in anything, or if you ever get... I'm sure there's, like, little nods to names. Like, I bet someplace in a Batman comic there's a Warden Crichton or something. But what if we ever did it with other villains? We really ought to. I've got some ideas for what somebody might do with a bookworm that, I think he could be a really interesting... social commentary on the fact that people don't read anymore, and just make him like obsessed with intellectualism and the lack of it in an age of progress. And that's what I would do with that character. And anyway, this really got my imagination going. Well, thanks a lot for watching, folks, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another one. I was Captain Logan, and happy reading.